Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd Podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. So I always worry, overreaction Monday, recency bias. I'm emotional. I watch these games. I get so key. You and I could sit and talk for an hour about a game, and you and I have had beers, and we're just like, it's like we're doing a show, right? Because we love what we do. But I remember years ago, you'll remember this. Randy Moss goes to the Patriots. He's there a couple of years. It's very successful. Monday night game against Miami. They don't frickin' target him. And I went on the air the next day on ESPN. I said, he's out. Timeout. You don't have Randy Moss and not target him. Now, you could target him 11 times with 2 completions. It could be the weather. He's out. And I remember at this point, I was still like reading emails and people were like, recency bias. 2 days later, it was gone. And I'm like, sometimes it's not recency bias. You're seeing shit. And I remember that because it was like, you couldn't guard Randy Moss at that point. You literally couldn't guard him. You had to roll coverage over. You could put Revis on him. It didn't matter. He got open. And I'm watching about 3 weeks ago, I'm watching Mahomes, and I saw it again Sunday. And it reminds me of MJ. And I said this 3 weeks ago. I said, I think that's the best football player I've ever seen. And one of the things I remember this with Michael Jordan years ago, I was on the couch at the time with a young lady. It was Vegas years ago, and it was the Phoenix Chicago series, Barkley MJ. And she was a basketball player, so she really loved the sport. And I said, there's 50 guys in this league, Michael, as tall as Michael, as slender. He's not the best shooter or the best ball handler. I said, you should be able to duplicate that.
Yeah.
Nobody can. I'm like, he makes it look like so easy. I said, even the great players, Barkley, you could tell when he shifted gears. Clyde Drexler, you could tell. Kobe shifting gears. Michael be like, he get these beads of sweat in his head. And you're like, yeah, I think he shifted gears. That Michael was so effortless when he would flip the ball over his head when he was fouled to do. And when I watch Mahomes, I'm like, is he playing 80% speed? This is not, I can tell when Josh Allen and Lamar are trying. And I don't think it's overreacting. I've never seen anything like Mahomes. I've never seen it. I haven't.
You still think, look, what he's doing at the position, because, we can talk about players and then the resume, because we get really good at counting and you start adding it all up. It appears, especially with the throwing angles and all that stuff, that he's more gifted at physical thrower of the football than Brady. But you don't have some of the same feelings that you had about Brady, where Brady in those big playoff spots, when he dropped back, you just went, oh, like he knows. He's elevated his risk. He knows what he has to do. Oh, they're not protecting. He doesn't have everybody getting open on the outside.
Right.
Like, I would see Brady in these games decide, hey, these are the things that aren't going my way. Now I'll adjust to those in a way that I think it's a pretty short list of people that I think are even on that with him. So I
felt like Brady was a math. He beat everybody at the math. That Tom could go to the line of scrimmage and he just did math and he knew what you couldn't defend. He always had a very good possession guy, Deion Branch, Wes Welker, Edelman. He almost always had a good tight end, Dante Scarnecchia, run game O-line. He had protection. I felt what Tom was doing, and this is not a knock, it was like chess. Tom was a math expert. He would go to the line. He knew what was coming. You couldn't throw anything at him. With Mahomes, he had a run in the Super Bowl where he ran in late. It may have been overtime, fourth quarter. He cut through the D line and sprinted. And there's something cognitively beyond math that he can do the math too. There is something about his ability to see something and the ball is out of his hand quicker than anybody I've ever seen. That it's brain function into ability, into release. It's like Marino plus Tom. Oh, yeah, he runs better than both. It's just, I watch him and I think it reminds me of Jordan. I'm like, is he playing at 70% speed?
Well, yeah, I feel like I'm disagreeing with you by just pushing back on that. We've never seen anyone have this composure throughout a game when I watched Brady do it for 20 years. But when you want to talk about his ability in the moment, um, he's a basket like the reason I've always loved basketball is that if you're really that good, you just figure out a way. You just figure out a way. Like it's 5 on 5. And you can double team me, but I got to get rid of the ball. Then I'm going to come back to it, and within the shot clock, like I got to figure out a way to make this shot because nobody great gets double teamed to the point where it's like, hey, that guy he had 0 points in the fourth quarter of a playoff game. Like you find a way once all the plays are understood and everything's breaking down, and the other guy who can't shoot throws it back to you, and you have it with 7 seconds left on the shot clock, huge possession, game seven. You have to find a way. You're not relying on whether or not an infielder was positioned correctly or if the pitcher had it or didn't have it, if you're the cleanup hitter, like that's so codependent. And even though football's the ultimate team sport because of all the moving pieces, like there's just so many other things that have to go into you making it work. And Mahomes has felt like the best basketball player. Like he's playing football like a basketball player, where I thought that game against San Francisco was incredibly hard for him. Watching the beginning of that game, that first half, I'm like,
Oh
okay, the
yeah,
San Francisco D line has shown up now in a way they did not show up against Green Bay or Detroit. They're up for this. They're amped. He doesn't have guys that can win on the outside here. Where's Kelsey? Okay, there's a little bit here, there. They're running right up the middle with Pacheco, and this Niners defense that was supposedly susceptible to that was shutting it down for a good chunk. And it didn't look like he was comfortable. And then we saw that stat where they've gone 17 straight possessions in the playoffs, going back to the Baltimore game into the San Francisco game without a touchdown. And
right.
yet you're like, he'll figure it out.
That's
And
right.
and he did. I mean, it's got to be incredible. You want to talk about sports fandom jealousy right now? I mean, how could anyone be higher than the Chiefs fans? Like, there's no one that you'd be more jealous of knowing that that guy's there, going to be there a long time. And I agree with you that it feels like this one guy that can control a game where it's not supposed to be one guy that controls it. Basketball, it's supposed to happen. Football, it's not.
We were talking about something, Russillo, in his gorgeous condo. Um, we were talking about something here. So I did Vegas for so long. Out of college, I was very, very lucky, very lucky. And I didn't make any money forever, but my first job was Vegas. So I got Mob Vegas, I got Tark Vegas, I got Tyson Vegas. Now it's so corporatized, it's so boring to me. I go to Vegas and people are like, oh, I love these corporate casinos. And I'm like, I saw Tony the Ant Spilatro at dinner. I'm not interested in your Vegas. So your interpretation of what you saw in Vegas. I like Miami. Miami is my Super Bowl site because I didn't do it much as a kid. I don't know it. It's lively. It's beautiful. I love Miami. Think Phoenix is overrated, too many spots. What did you think of Vegas?
Phoenix is a little too spread out, but
Yeah,
Scottsdale is fun because you feel like you're not necessarily in a Super Bowl town, even though, look, when the Super Bowl is in town, it's going to take over most things. New York City was still one of the most amazing Super Bowl destinations because you just couldn't even tell it was there. It was just New York
exactly.
City, and
You
and
couldn't.
no,
Not it.
and
I went
and
out one night and I'm like, the United Nations was there. And I'm like, Super Bowl might as well have been the Holiday Bowl. Nobody cared.
it was like jarring to just realize what New York City is
Yes,
prepared
it was.
for. And even with Vegas, that really can do this probably as well as anyone. It's fairly convenient. But that Saturday when I was leaving, I was like, get me out of here because it was a lot. I mean, I've never seen a Super Bowl destination take it over like when Philly played New England in Jacksonville about
Oh,
20 years
Jesus.
ago. That was just a bunch of frustrated young white guys pounding the shit out of each other at dive bars because they couldn't get
Yeah,
in anywhere.
that's bad.
So that was maybe one of the roughest scenes I've ever seen. But Vegas is, it's funny when people say like it changes, and I know that's what you just said, but my buddies do that. They're like, oh, Vegas isn't the same anymore. I'm like, you're not the same. You're different.
Right.
So if you wanted to do the stuff that you did when you were 25, you could. It's just not appealing to you anymore. So I've been there 3 times in the last 4 months, which is a lot, to be there that often. I hadn't been going there that often in a while. I kind of have my routine down. I love it. And look, as we get older, the fact that we can have friends in the business that we may not see except for that once a year stretch during the Super Bowl, I'm in favor of it, despite your downgrading of what it was. But your experience is completely different than the rest of ours because none of us have actually lived there like you did.
Yeah, and I'm not downgrading. I'm just saying You make a good point. When I was there, I was broke. I was fresh. I was single. There was mobsters. Yeah, I tell people this is a true story, opposed to the ones I just make up. But this is a true story. I go to Vegas. I drive there in my AMC Pacer out of college. Almost breaks down in Fresno and Bakersfield. So I get over there. And so the first afternoon I check, I can't afford much. So before I meet my new bosses, I get a job out of college. I go to the Circus, and it was the cheap room. It was like, $6 buffet, $19 room. So they didn't have cell phones back then, right? So I go and I pull a slot. I kid you not, Ryan. I go down, pull a slot. First pull, first pull, $75. Now that was a lot 35 years ago. So I'm one of those people, I'm good at quitting stuff. I stopped. I was like, I'm taking it. I only brought like $800. So I call my mom later that night and I'm like, Mom, do not send money. I own this town. Do not worry about it. Ryan, I was there 6.5 years. I never won again a slot machine. First pull 75, 5 grand after that. Never won a nickel. So there's my Vegas story. Do you have anything that's memorable in Vegas?
What a metaphor for your career, though. Like put in minimal work and then just
That is great. That is my career.
I'm kidding. You grind, and that's why
Whatever.
we like each other so much.